Hello guys! I am so happy that you're here. I'm Emily, and here we explore all the different ways that you can have a better experience in this crazy game that we're all playing called life as a human being. I want to talk about something that I've learned that has really helped me on my healing journey. This is a concept that can help us just understand the nature of reality and the roles that our beliefs and our judgments on what is can play in our lives, and that concept is duality. Duality is essentially polarity, positive, negative, good, bad, and the understanding that these things are two sides of the same coin, two different perspectives created by form. That understanding is often referred to as non-duality. Non-duality acknowledges that everything in the universe is part of the same whole. It's all connected, one thing expressed as many. So why does this matter and what does it have to do with healing? For me, getting caught in the story of good and bad and right and wrong all fueled the possibility that I could be bad. I had so much fear of doing the wrong thing, believing the wrong thing, being seen as bad by the people around me. And as I started to see all the different perspectives and opinions and beliefs around me in this world, it gave me so much anxiety because I thought there must be one right path that made everything else wrong. And what if I was wrong? So when I came to realize that all of these many perspectives are just different ways of looking at the same one thing, that I didn't have to worry about being on the wrong path or saving everybody who was bad, that was so freeing for me. It allowed me to feel safe again in my own body and rest in what is. It allowed me to dismantle all of those underlying causes of the anxiety that I felt, and to see that everything that I labeled as bad or wondered why it was happening to me, why was I suffering, all of those things I could see now as tremendous grace. I want to read a little bit of a poem to you by my favorite poet, Hafez. It says, "Now is the time to know that all you do is sacred. Now is the time to understand that all your ideas of right and wrong were just a child's training wheels to be laid aside. When you can finally live with ferocity and love, this is the time for you to deeply compute the impossibility that there is anything but grace." Now, before we get into this, I want to point something out. When we're talking about these non-dual truths, things like hardships being grace and positive and negative being the same, it's important to remember that these things can easily be twisted into harming, gaslighting, and spiritually bypassing people. We have to acknowledge that though these ideas are true, they're true from an entirely different dimension of looking at reality, which that in itself requires a little bit of non-dual thinking to understand. Think of it as though you're watching a movie that you love, and in the movie, a lot of really terrible things happen, but you still call it a good movie. You wouldn't say that the movie shouldn't have been made because there's pain and hardship in the movie. You can say this because you're watching the movie from the outside, but as the character in that movie that's going through all of that pain and hardship, it hurts, it's terrible. This is how we need to look at life. We can hold these different perspectives as equally valid and equally true even when they seem contradictory, but non-duality should never be used to invalidate someone's pain. Okay. So, I'd been wondering for a while how to make a video about a topic like this, and I found this show called Initiation, hosted by a guy named Matthias DeStefano. And the show basically explains all of existence. Simple, I know, it's just some light, fun entertainment. But this guy explains some really big, complex topics in a way like I've never heard before. In the episode, Matthias explains that everything started as one thing, unity consciousness, which he says is basically like a librarian who has read every book and knows everything about the world, but has never lived or experienced any of it. So the librarian decides to enter the story to live and experience it all, and this is how form is born. So let's take a look at Matthias explaining how duality came to be and why.
A projection of the self comes out, and suddenly you can see yourself from a different perspective. This other side of seeing yourself allows you to see a different way in which you can move through the reality. So the self in the center splits in two, and from that two creates two forces. One is what we call the purpose, and the other one is what we call the mission. Purpose is the positive energy in the universe, and mission is a negative energy in the universe. Both of them are like waves of just one self dividing in two and then start to roll in between of them. And they never stop to rotating one around the other one around the other one, creating different waves in different perspectives, in different directions.
Let's keep watching.
We in our planet and in many other planets had not word for good and bad. We all the time call the positive and the negative forces.
This is a good time to tell you that this man remembers his past life as an alien in a completely woke society.
And the better way to understand how these two forces work is if you have in a room a light and you put yourself in the center. As closest you get to the light, the shadow behind you will be bigger. So the darkness is surrounding you, and as close you get to the main point of light, which is the purpose you had, the goal to touch the other perspective of yourself, darkness will go all around you. The light and the darkness were just projections, that the only way you can see both as a creation is in the center. If you go through light or you go through dark, one of those will embrace you, and then you will be lost in one of those perspectives. So you have all these two forces to create realities, but if you move towards one of them and you lost in one of them, the universe will hit you from behind. And that's why to one of those forces we call the negative and the bad energies of the universe. The bad energies of the universe are just your own shadows trying to remember you that you are out of your way. When everything is going bad, when the whole forces of the universe is telling you this is not your way, and suddenly everything goes down, it's not because there is a bad force in the universe. It's because you were so far away from yourself that energy that we call the mission is pulling you back so you can find your center again. The only reality is unity. That's why you cannot go towards one of those perspectives, because they are not true. They are just a perspective to see yourself from another dimension.
Okay, I love this idea because we can see that rather there being a concrete good and bad, the goal is always balance, and all of those things are just bringing us back to our center, including all the things we label as negative. Those are just consequences of action, a necessary energy pulling us back into that middle place. Looking at it that way helps us take responsibility instead of blaming something outside of ourselves. And through this, we can see that everything is grace, guiding us back home, just like that quote from Hafez. Okay, let me find another part I want to show you. Okay, let's watch this part about the nature of change.
So, all reality we live in is created by positive and negative, and you should not go to one of them, because if you choose one of them, you're just pushing yourself to the edge of a reality, and you are pushing yourself to destroy yourself. There is no good and bad in the universe. There is only neutrality.
Okay, this is where we have to note that spiritual bypassing potential in non-duality. In saying that there is no bad, he's not saying that certain actions don't cause harm or that we shouldn't strive to be kind and love other people. In fact, when you realize that everything is one, you realize by hurting others, you're really only hurting yourself. Again, it's that law of cause and effect. So what he's saying is both of those forces are two sides of the same thing, and that's necessary for creation and evolution.
In duality, we have this law, which is everything is evolving all the time. nothing is stable. Nothing is always the same. The only constant in the universe is that everything is unconstant, that everything is moving and transforming itself. So we believed as humans that if we are stable, we are good. We have a good job, we have good partners, we have a good life, so I'm stable. But that's illness. When you get stabilized in your life, suddenly something happens that pushes you outside your comfortable life, so you can find a different perspective of yourself. We call that crisis. But crises are good for the universe because pushed you towards evolution.
This is so good because sometimes we get way too comfortable and we want to cozy up and get stagnant, and that's when those negative things have to come in and shake shit up so we get out of our comfort zone and continue to evolve and grow. Okay, let me show you one last clip about love.
As humans, all the time, unconditional love, but we don't really know exactly what it means. Unconditional is something that has not condition. So you are not able to love really if you have a condition. The first condition is the projection. So the first condition is I am here and you are there. That's a condition. You cannot love the other one if you don't realize that it's yourself from another perspective. So unconditional and love means eternity. Love is the wave of time and space. It's not loving others. We also make that mistake. So we think that loving others is the only way to be in balance, but it's not like that. Loving others is loving perspective from the self. So the only way you can possibly love unconditionally is when you, in coherence, love yourself.
Okay, this is so key because in the acceptance of all these different perspectives and the letting go of a right way to be, we're actually able to love so much more freely. We can love ourselves and we can love others freely and without judgment or comparison when we see that it's all just an exploration of ourselves, that life is just one big love story, and that we're here to experience it all and to enjoy the ride. How beautiful is that? There's so much good stuff in here, guys. I wish I could just sit here and show you the whole thing, but I'm gonna do something better. In the caption, you'll find a link to the show on Gaia, and using that link, you can get a free trial to watch as much of the show as you want. Every episode of season 1 covers a different dimension of reality. And if you're a seeker who thinks the big thoughts and asks the big questions and wonders about what all this is and why we are here, this show explains it all so beautifully. And this guy Matthias is just so awesome. I'm totally gonna try to get him on my podcast. I love you all. See you next week. Remember that you are safe, you are loved, and you have everything you need within you.